Good afternoon, card fighters, and welcome to the Prime Vanguard channel. Now today you'll be joining me in the very first episode of my What a Deck Needs to Be Competitive series. This series is inspired by Solemn Vanguard's original take on this, and I want to give him credit for creating the series as he is the original maker. Now in this series, I'll be featuring my favorite decks and archetypes that I believe deserve the chance to be competitively viable and discuss what support they'll need in the future to become top tier. Now how this will go is we will analyze a deck, determine what makes it good, what makes it bad, and what support we'll need in the future so that it keeps up with the current meta. As I am making this video, we are about to enter the set 12 meta with Evenfall Onslaught, only a couple of days away from release, so I'll be discussing what Mythiarq will need to be good in the future meta past this set. If you enjoy this type of content, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're always up to date on my newest videos coming out. 1. This deck is horrible against control matchups. Gandiva steamrolls over this deck so hard. On top of the absurd amount of power the deck gets, being able to continuously board wipe your opponent with your other card effects and acquire a lot of late game power disrupts this deck heavily. Ava has grade 2 units that can swing at the entire front row and destroy your entire front row formation, which you need to reset for Lurith Azul's attacks. And any other deck that can control or at least retire or get rid of 2 units on the board outside of the front row every other turn is extremely threatening for Lurith Azul. Now to mitigate this issue, I believe that adding a Mythiarq unit that has an effect similar to either Empix, Phalanx, Medla, or Diane, prior units in the past with resist and anti-target effects, would all be very strong targets to have. If these units have Mythiarq in their name and apply protection effects to our Mythiarq rear guards, that would make the control matchup a lot more playable. You wouldn't have to worry about dropping a lot of your hand or desperately needing Persona Ride to mitigate the fact that you're losing out on a huge amount of your board every single turn, which is needed to use both Lurith Azul's second effect as well as the effect of your other Mythiarq rear guards. Now don't get me wrong, I do believe that every deck should have a counter, but it shouldn't be if I face against a Gandiva deck or a deck like Eugene, of all things, that can steamroll this deck with ease. So I definitely believe that giving them something that can protect the rear guards from card effects would be a really strong start for this deck, as well as that unit having a power-up effect. 2. Power. The Mythiarq power lines on your rear guard as well as your Vanguard line are depressing. Mythiarq, Elandrina, as well as Myrmillion, Alperial, all give effects that give 5,000 power to themselves or to other units, but unfortunately, the power from that just isn't enough. If you miss with Persona Ride on this deck, you are crying throughout the remainder of that game. Persona Riding and the effects of your other Mythiarq units that do acquire power is the only way this deck can push aggressively. Unlike all the other decks out right now that can acquire huge amounts of power from the rear guards alone, Mythiarq doesn't have that. And because we're locked into playing predominantly Mythiarq names, having a Mythiarq unit that can give power to the rear guards as well as itself would be a really strong start. Kelpie Rider Paul, as well as other units that give more than 2,000 power to the rear guards, would be a really good booster for the Mythiarq lines. Not only does this power-up would give it to itself and to other rear guards without removing itself off the board, but it would also be a different name target for Lurith Azul's effect. That means that you're adding more Mythiarq names into the deck, increasing the chance of you getting the second effect off of Lurith Azul, which means that you have more targets to choose from when coming to your attacks. Also, giving 3,000 power to more than one unit isn't as bad as you think. If you throw the Persona Ride power on top of that as well as the effect of the other cards, your lines should go up from about the 23,000 to like the 26,000 they are now to past 28,000, which will get over a 15k guard. The additional power from another unit that doesn't leave the board, unlike the rest of the Stoicheia support, would actually make Mythiarq way better in terms of aggression. This deck would finally be able to push your opponent back with hard enough numbers to where they at least have to throw more cards from their hand onto the Guardian Circle than just 10k and 15k shields. 3. Strengthening the gimmick aspect of Mythiarq. Now Mythiarq has 3 unique gimmicks. They have Discard, Paralyze, as well as Stun. Now, being able to stop your opponent from using their rear guards, as well as being able to prevent them from intercepting and discarding a card from their hand, altogether that's a lot of disruptive plays that slows down your opponent. And if we're going to keep using Lurith Azul as our main boss unit and resetting our Persona Ride using the effects of our other cards, I believe that this is the route that they should go. I think to keep Mythiarq a unique deck that a lot of players might want to pick up just to enjoy for fun, or in this case competitively, having stronger gimmicky effects disrupt your opponent's board, I think is going to be crucial for this deck to succeed. I think that with where we're going in the metagame of Cardfight Vanguard OverDress, an effect such as the ability of your Vulgar Blister, of the Deleter Gay, or the effect of, hell, even the Stride of Merciless Mutiny Deity Darkface, putting effects like that onto a rear guard or onto a grade 3 updated version of Lurith Azul that works with the deck, I think would actually be very fair with where we're going in the meta. All of these effects disrupt your opponent's play and they slow them down in unique ways. Getting an ability to paralyze more of your opponent's units actually be extremely strong and fitting of where Stoicheia is going, since we have cards like Margaret already out that paralyze the entire front row if you Persona Ride, and Myramillion who paralyze a unit. But I do think it's fair to say that strengthening the gimmicky aspect of that, or even adding more gimmicks to the deck, will just make it stand out more as a unique deck, as well it's going to do something different than the other decks do. While this deck won't retire or bind in some cases, at least you'll have different gimmicky effects that your opponent won't be expecting to deal with the different matchups Mythiarq will face. This will make it a very good deck that can handle different archetypes of decks that do different things against those matchups, because you'll have a variety of gimmicky effects that disrupt your opponent's plays. Keep in mind that Mega Colony is a part of the Stoicheia Nation, so therefore I think we can delve more into those Mega Colony effects to disrupt our opponent. Now that we have resist, power, and stronger gimmicks, the next thing Mythiarq definitely will need to close all of its support out to keep with the other decks is a clear finisher on how we want to win our games. In the current state of Mythiarq, the way that we win our games is by using 4 attacks, relying on Persona Ride, beating down our opponent with triggers, and using our gimmicks to slow them down. That is like 9 out of 10 other decks and what they're doing right now. If Mythiarq really wants to stand out as a competitive deck, I think that we definitely need to explore more of the effects from the older units back in the day to make this deck stronger or scarier. I think an ability that would be really good for Lurith Azul would be the effect of Thegria or the new Avant-Garde Richter. Both of these cards have similar effects to where once they enter the Vanguard circle, you use their effects, and then you go back to the original variation that was in the soul. This would work out extremely well for Lurith Azul, as you can go into a new grade 3 Mythiarq unit, use its effect, then go back into Lurith Azul, use her effect, both of them, to get another unit onto the board for 5 attacks, as well as use her second ability to get back one of your units and get 6 attacks. That could be a really strong route for Mythiarq, and it keeps the core aspect of the deck, as this would be something unique to only Mythiarq, as this will give you the opportunity to reuse Lurith Azul and not be so desperate for Persona Ride every single turn. Not only would your gimmicks be stronger, as they're all on place effects like they currently are now for Mythiarq, but then your lines would be so much better because you'd have more than one way of getting Persona Ride to make sure that your rearguard's attacks are actually scary for your opponent. And if we didn't want to go this route, I think something that just at least lets you reset Lurith Azul or reuse her again during the battle phase would make her very strong as well. And if we don't want to go this route to keep up with the other decks, another thing we could do is we can use a rear guard who has the ability to reset Lurith Azul on your Vanguard circle like Myramillion does for your rear guard. If you can bind the Vanguard, or at least the grade 3 on your Vanguard circle, and then put it back on the Vanguard circle, I think that would actually be a very impressive and unique skill. Again, it would let you reuse Lurith Azul, it wouldn't reset Persona Ride, but it would let you reset Lurith Azul, get the discard off, more units out of the deck and onto the board to fetch out whatever piece you might need for your matchup. That would mitigate the key issues in Mythiarq that we discussed today: power, gimmicks, as well as finishing. With all of these being said and the future support of the deck being created for this video, I think that if Mythiarq were to have this could definitely take the deck up to the next top tier. With that being said, card fighters, thank you so much for staying out through the entirety of this video. I can't wait to see you in the next episode and discuss what support I believe Grom Grace will need to be competitively viable. Thank you so much for staying tuned. I'll catch you later. Peace.